With 6 days left until the end of the 2020 election, the early votes continue to roll in. According to the U.S. Elections Project, more than 75 million people have already cast their ballots. That's more than half the total votes counted in the election 4 years ago. No state has a higher turnout than Texas so far, with more than 8 million early votes counted. At least 9 counties in the newly minted battleground state have already surpassed their 2016 turnout. President Trump visited 2 key states in the West Wednesday, Nevada and Arizona, while Democratic nominee Joe Biden kept his campaign virtual from his home base in Delaware for the day. President Trump continues to hold packed in-person rallies, leading to some problems in Nebraska last night. At least 6 people were hospitalized after hundreds of people were left stranded for hours in near-freezing temperatures, waiting for buses to transport them from the airfield back to their cars. Before casting his vote in Wilmington this afternoon, Joe Biden attacked President Trump for the incident. Drawing a line to the coronavirus pandemic, Biden claimed the president doesn't care about the health of Americans.
Just look at what happened last night in Omaha after the Trump rally ended. Hundreds of people, including older Americans and children, were stranded in sub-zero freezing temperatures for hours. Several folks ended up in the hospital. It's an image that captures President Trump's whole approach to this crisis. He takes a lot of big pronouncements, and he makes a lot of big pronouncements, but they don't hold up. He gets his photo op and then he gets out. He leaves everyone else to suffer the consequence of his failure to make a responsible plan. It seems like he just doesn't care much about it.
Meanwhile, at a news conference from his hotel in Las Vegas earlier, President Trump remained confident about his standing in the race, with an eye on the courts.
The early ballots were doing much better than anticipated. We assumed a certain number. I think they are underperforming, and I think on Tuesday we're going to overperform, and we'll see what happens at the end of the day. Hopefully it won't go longer than that. Hopefully the few states remaining that want to take a lot of time after November 3rd to count ballots, that won't be allowed by the various courts, because, as you know, we're in court.
Caitlin Huey-Burns and Tina Nguyen join me now. Caitlin is CBSN's ace political reporter with us from Philadelphia, and Tina is a White House reporter for Politico in Washington. Great to have you both. Well, Tina, President Trump repeatedly insisted that only votes counted on election night should count, even though election night totals are unofficial tallies compiled by the media. But this sentiment was echoed by Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh in his opinion Monday in a case over Wisconsin's mail ballot deadline. He said states should avoid what he calls chaos and accusations of impropriety that come from ballots that arrive after Election Day, and that states should want to definitively announce their results on election night or soon after, even though many states don't certify until weeks later. So what sort of groundwork does this lay for a potential election legal battle?
It's a pretty clear indicator that if there is a chance that Trump wanted to challenge the results of the election, at least he has a couple of allies in the court who are saying, okay, we'll have a chance to do that. It's sort of inevitable that if the race is close at all, and there's possibility of a recount, particularly in the handful of states that Trump needs to win in order to get past 270 votes in the Electoral College, they will take it up to the Supreme Court. There's already been a precedent for this kind of battle to take place. Just think of the 2000 recount mess. And if he has at least one person on the court saying, yeah, we're going to make a ruling on this, you have to stop all the counting right now, and we're just going to go with this number. And if the count happens to be in a time that has Trump up ahead by I don't know how much, it's going to be a huge benefit for the Trump administration.
Yeah, well, Caitlin, at this point, with all the uncertainty, what should voters be doing with their mail ballots?
Well, since we're just 6 days away from Election Day, and I honestly can't believe we're saying that, but if you still are holding your ballot in your hand, do not send it through the post office. Just go ahead and drop it off in person at your clerk's office, at your supervisor's office, at a secure drop box if your county has one, because we know that the Postal Service had been warning ahead of time. Get your ballots in if you're going to mail them in at least 2 weeks ahead of time. Now we're really in crunch time. So lots of election officials are just urging voters, if you still have your ballot, don't put it in the post office. Make sure you hand it in person. It also should be said that, states where I am in Pennsylvania right now, this is the first time that they're having early voting. This is the first time that they are going to be having voters voting this way by absentee before. So there is a lot of room for error when it comes to filling out your ballot, making sure it gets in on time if you're a new voter or a voter who hasn't voted this way before. So again, we always urge people to go to cbsnews.com/vote and see all of the breakdowns in your state, all of the deadlines. But if you're still holding on to a ballot, get it out of your hands, get it in person to your local elections office.
Good advice. And Caitlin, you are with us from Philadelphia, where protests are ongoing after the police killing of Walter Wallace this week. What more can you tell us, and how have the candidates been responding?
Well, there is a curfew in place in Philadelphia tonight for 9 p.m. What was really interesting was hearing from Joe Biden today after he cast his vote for himself in Delaware early today. He was asked what he made of the events going on in Philadelphia. And the first thing that he responded with was that he condemned the rioting. And that's been something where President Trump has been trying to go after Biden on this issue, believing that this kind of thing helps the Trump campaign. So it was telling that Biden's first response was to condemn rioting. They have repeatedly weighed in on these kinds of events that are happening all too often. In an area like Philadelphia, this is a place that Biden comes to often. He lives just an hour and a half away, really, in Wilmington. He's been campaigning heavily in Pennsylvania, and this is something that we heard President Trump try to seize on while he was campaigning in Nevada today.
Meanwhile, Tina, I want to ask about your latest article for Politico on how conservative media is fighting to repair the narrative being pushed about Joe Biden's son, Hunter. What did you learn?
The entire mess around the laptop Rudy Giuliani provided to the New York Post and the subsequent information that he tried to take off and ship to all of these other outlets, Fox News, One America Network, etc. It was so atomized and spread into so many different little moving parts that it was impossible for conservative media or the MAG movement at all to coalesce around the story and go, okay, exactly who is doing what with Hunter, and is there crimes here? Is Joe Biden related to them somehow? Because in one outlet, you have allegations that Hunter is using his office to get political appointees past his father. In another one, there's, oh, he's hanging out with John Kerry's daughter in Kazakhstan. And then there are all these salacious, more explicit photos that end up on conspiracy websites. And in the meantime, Rudy's going around saying, I'm the only one who can tell this story, but no one can quite track exactly what it is. Now, the Trump campaign is going a bit of a ways to try to repair that by putting Tony Bobulinski, who's one of the former Biden confidants making the bulk of the allegations. They put him on Fox News last night, and he finally walked Tucker Carlson and his audience through exactly what he was alleging, and it was clarifying. And the right finally had an, oh, yeah, this is exactly what happened moment. But we have 6 days until the election, and that's not a lot of time to teach non-Fox watchers exactly who Tony Bobulinski is.
Right, it is very late, and as we've said, tens of millions of Americans have already cast their ballots. All right, Caitlin, Huey-Burns, and Tina Nguyen, thank you both very much.